Welcome back to the first ever Society of Automotive Analysts Technology Outlook Conference, right here inside the Los Angeles Convention Center. Stay tuned for remarks from Mr. Eric Noble, President of the CARLAB Incorporated.
And those of you who've traveled out, I'd like to welcome you to Southern California. We're not a very welcoming place, unless you call traffic and long lines and inhospitable folks welcoming. But from my part, I'd like to welcome you here if you've traveled out. I noticed up here, I thought this was a box of tissues, and I thought that was in the wrong place. You all should have them during my presentation. I'll apologize. My desktop's a little bit full. In the last week, we've done 3 full-scale design clinics, 18 engineering drives on the East Coast, and an interim deliverable yesterday on a quarter-scale clay program. So if I have verbal dyslexia, just correct me. And there's probably rocks in the presentation as well. I told Lori that as of 5 p.m. yesterday, this was 250 slides. Yeah, so there was a lot of triage that occurred. This is down to sort of veneer level. But what I want to talk about is the midsize car segment. This is what's going to keep me moving. Already my first hint, it's helpful. Okay, so I'm the last guy to get paid at the CARLAB, and we're an automotive product design and planning consulting firm. So we're outside. We serve OEMs and Tier 1s, and we do product planning consulting, studio design consulting, and then we do due diligence on companies that are for sale for either buyers or sellers. And we've done that on most of the automotive brands that have transacted in the last 5 years. One of these. The round one.
Yeah, here, this can help you.
Cool. All right. The midsize car segment is one of the biggest in North America. It has been one of the most dull, right? It's not any longer, and so today what I want to do is give you an unfiltered look at this segment, at least from the CARLAB standpoint. There will be no sugar added, but if you have peanut allergies, you'll still be all right. Okay, why is this a topic these days? Well, segment leadership is being hotly contested. It's interesting, we do a lot of design clinics, and one of the toughest things about doing a design clinic in North America in the last year is getting a Sonata to use as a comparison vehicle. You can't get them. We go to our vehicle suppliers, and they say, we can't get a Sonata. The dealerships have them sold before they even come off the transporters. You want a Camry and an Accord in silver? We can get you 50 different versions. If you want a Sonata, you have to buy them. We actually go buy a Sonata, typically on the used market, right? Use it in the clinic, and then resell the thing. It's the only way we can get it for clinics. There's so much demand. So I thought this sort of depicted the segment. It doesn't want to be racehorses, does it? Okay. Over time, however, the segment has been really super slow in terms of change. And the tar sands on top here is the Toyota Camry, right? And not that they've been really keeping everybody down, but they've been really the segment leader for an awfully long time. And then somewhere in there is the Accord, and then everybody else. What's really interesting, though, this goes back to '91, is if we look at what's happened since 2007. So what we've done is just indexed it at 0, and we've got the overs and the unders. The unders, if you're Toyota and Honda, are really unfortunate, because that's Camry and Accord. And they're hemorrhaging market share, right? And it ain't the tsunami, okay? You notice how smart Japanese tsunamis are, by the way? When they go through a town, they're selective about what supplier plants they hit, and they typically only hit the plants that were making parts for cars that didn't sell well anyway. Have you noticed that? We're having trouble getting parts. In any case, who's up? Malibu's up. Hyundai's up. Kia's up. In a very, very big way. The segment's not up, really, so those are coming directly from the hides of the former leaders. Okay, so what are the new measures? Because if you talk to Toyota and Honda, what they tell you is, our system's the same. We're doing things just the way we used to do them. We have a great process. We stick to that process in product development, but they're getting different results. Are they getting different product, or is that product coming into a different market? What we at CARLAB would argue is that product's coming into a different market that now has new measures. The old measures that Toyota and Honda won by aren't the measures now, and they won't be the measures going forward. And I think Thilo and I will converge on this toward the end. Oops. All right. So you get stuff like this. This is some Hyundai dealer somewhere's ad, and they're advertising the fact that J.D. Power has invented yet another award, and they've won one. Right? So if DQR was the old measure of excellence in the segment, it's not that it's meaningless today. If you talk to these consumers, the old-fashioned survey, what do you care about? Oh, I don't want it to break. Right? Okay, so technically that's still important. What's different is everyone offers it. Hyundai offers it. These guys were on their knees 15 years ago, right? Bottom basement brand. Today, they're selling out everything they can make. If you ask those consumers, what's the expected DQR on your Sonata? Oh, it'll be great. It's no longer a differentiator. By the way, Source isn't either. The people in North America that care where a vehicle's built are bottom basement demographically and psychographically. They're the buyers you don't want. They're the least educated, least affluent people who still say, you know, Ford's tattooed on my heart. Well, great, but there's nothing in your wallet. Okay, what's happened with price in this segment since 1985? We did a little study called VHAS, Vehicle Historical Attribute Study. And what we did is we said, look, we can't go back and ask consumers what used to be important to them. What we can do is go back into a segment and look at the top 3 sales leaders by market share in the segment, and then look at the attributes of those leaders over time, and use that as a surrogate for what consumers demand. What attributes do those top 3 vehicles have since 1985? This is the price adjusted for inflation, so it's $2011, of the mid-size car top 3 sales leaders over time. What you can see is there has been some change, but generally, we're not going up in price. We're going down in price. Now, we can say, well, we're in a deflationary environment. Remember, this is adjusted for constant dollars. So what we're doing is we're delivering, whether it's more or less, we're delivering for less. And this looks like it will continue. We've projected all the way out to 2025. Trend lines are really dangerous, right? At some point in Rome, there was a trend line for chariot sales, right? Eventually, by definition, trend lines are wrong, but it's interesting to see where this goes. It ain't up. And nothing in this market suggests that prices are going to go up. Okay? Well, does price matter for sales? What we hear, the story is that the Koreans have come in and they've undercut on price the Japanese segment leaders. We're going to see that specifically by make model that's not true. But what we see when we look at the segment, and this is a little bit hard to read, it's a bunch of dots that represent the mid-sized cars as competitors to one another. And on our bottom axis is sales in thousands, and on the vertical axis, or the Y, is MSRP. And what we can see is, in fact, if you wanted to draw a relationship between price and sales, you could make the argument that the higher your price is, the more you sell. In other words, there's no statistical relationship in this segment between sales volume and price. If the Koreans are winning, it ain't the price. And by the way, if you'd run this 5 years ago in this segment, it would have been true then too. Some of the higher priced models, the Accord and the Camry, were the top volume sellers. Okay, well, if it's not size, or if it's not price that drives it, is it size? You know, is there an advantage to the way that you lay out the vehicle? And what we see here is this is the overall length of the top 3 sellers in the segment since 1985. Now this segment is defined in some ways by its dimensions. So externally we can see they haven't gotten any longer. This is overall length. The mid-sized car hasn't really gotten any longer, at least insofar as the consumers prefer it, since 1985. That's been static. Now, we hear these things like, well, if you look at the Accord, you know, the Accord has grown and grown and grown and grown. Well, the Accord, by size, is no longer in the mid-size segment. It's a large car, right? By EPA categorization.